Hey guys, it's Miss Willis with our next set of notes. We are now looking at viruses and bacteria. So for starters, viruses, are they living or not? Generally, we don't consider viruses to be living simply because, remember, with the characteristics of life, we have that living things must be made of cells, they must have their own metabolism, they must have DNA, and of those things, viruses are not made of cells. They have a protein coat or they have a lipid coat. We have that some of them can have DNA or they have RNA for their genetic code. And then they cannot replicate on their own. They have to have a host. So generally, we don't consider them to be living. With viruses, the way that they can replicate and infect a cell can be one of two different cycles. So it could be the lytic cycle. And if you break down these words, lytic and lysogenic, if you remember that to lyse means to break. And so starting off with the lytic cycle, we have that virus gets in there into a cell, starts making a bunch of cells, and it just keeps doing that until the cell busts open, and then a bunch of viruses explode out and then go infect other cells and continue to do that. The lysogenic cycle does this a kind of a step further. In its infection into the cell, it actually makes its DNA part of the cell's DNA, so that every time a cell copies itself, it'll have the DNA from the virus. And so then every cell afterward, because think about that, when we start off with our one cell that has the DNA, when it splits, now there's two cells that make the viral DNA plus the cell itself. And then when those split, we have 4, and then 8, and then 16, and then 32, and then 64, and then 128, and keep going exponentially. When that happens, then after so long, those cells enter the lytic cycle, and then they also explode open with viruses to then infect more and more of the cells. So you can pause this image here and take a look at where, once the virus gets in there, how that's going to infect the cell based on whether it's going through the lytic cycle only. Remember, the lytic cycle does not make the DNA part of the cell's DNA, or the lysogenic cycle where the viral DNA does become part of the cell's DNA. So you can pause that and take a look at that. For characteristics of viruses, they can infect almost anything. Generally, they are species specific, but what we can find out and what we're finding out lately is that they can change in a way that they can infect more than one species, or once they change from one to the next. So like with HIV, is a human immunodeficiency virus, and it causes the human's immune system to basically crash. Once it gets advanced enough, then AIDS develops, which is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. And so this is just another, we won't get into the details of it, but oh, if you hear a dog or a baby in the background, they're here. But we know that HIV is spread by sexual contact or blood, or if you use dirty needles and things like that. With HIV, it's a retrovirus. It has RNA as its genome, not DNA. And it's going to use an enzyme to help it reproduce. If you remember transcriptase from all the way back in November, then you might recall that it helps with replicating the DNA of the cell. And so we're using reverse transcriptase, and we're getting our RNA to turn into DNA. And once it does this, then the HIV virus takes over the cell and the cell is now expressing the HIV DNA and not the cell's DNA. Then we get to bacteria. We know that these were the first life forms. Prokaryotes, remember pro meaning before, karyote referring to the nucleus, so before a true nucleus, versus eukaryote, EU meaning true. They can be heterotrophic, they can be autotrophic. They are unicellular. They may work in groups, but each individual cell is its own organism. We didn't know about them for a really long time because of how small they were. If you recall from our last set of notes, the original way that we grouped organisms was that there were plants and there were animals. We had no idea about bacteria. And now that we have microscopes, obviously we have a lot more information on them. With bacteria, they get classified into two kingdoms. They can be eubacteria or archaeobacteria. Both of them are unicellular. Both of them are cells that can be heterotrophic or autotrophic. This word chemosynthesizers over here, instead of using sunlight to form its own food source, it uses chemicals, generally like in water. So like basically the kinds that might live at the lower parts of the ocean or in areas that don't have access to sunlight. They could, for eubacteria, they could be harmful or helpful. And you can see that we have staph, strep, E. coli. These are things you've heard of a staph infection. You've heard of someone having strep throat. E. coli is the one that's in our colon. And so those are just examples that you might have heard of. For archaeobacteria, generally we find these in extreme habitats. So if you've seen any of those pictures of hot springs that have all of the really pretty colors like this. This is water that like basically has a rainbow. That's actually caused by bacteria. It's caused by archaeobacteria. And so we have ones that are called methanogens that we would find in our swamps or landfills. We have halophiles, which would be in salt water, and then we have thermophiles, which would be our heat lovers, which would be what you found in those hot springs that make those pretty colors. For structures, bacteria, we can determine that we can classify them by their shape. So we have cocci, singular coccus. So when you've heard of streptococcus, it has to do with that there will be long chains of these circular or spherical bacteria. For bacilli or bacillus, they have these rod shapes. And then spiral or spirili would be the corkscrew. You see these back here. They are spun, right? And I don't know if you can tell that this one here is spun. So are they helpful or harmful? Depends on what they're doing. So if you recall back from ecology, we had the nitrogen fixation is done by bacteria. And so it converts atmospheric nitrogen into a form that plants can absorb up through their roots. And so that would obviously be very helpful because we can't access it that way. For our decomposers, breaking down dead organisms, returning those nutrients to the soil, that's also a beneficial thing. That's helpful. Sewage treatment, microbes that help recycle nutrients in waste. Bioremediation, looking at removing pollutants from the environment. So they've done that with like oil spills. They might put bacteria out there because the bacteria can actually digest the oil in those, disasters that happen. And then obviously within our bodies, we have good bacteria in our colon that help us with absorbing certain nutrients as well as breaking down other molecules. And then for things that are harmful, if any type of bacteria that comes into our body that's harmful, we call it a pathogen. So anything that can cause disease. So we have Staphylococcus, Streptococcus. So that's the one we were talking about. That strep means chains of. And then Staphylococcus would be little bunches of it, so like clusters. And then here we've got Lyme disease. We've got Yersinia pestis, which is what caused the plague, the Black Death. And then that's where we will leave with that today. See you next time.